Hey guys, it's day 2 or day 3 of shutdown. Yesterday you worked on some questions for me and you should have uploaded hopefully your answers to Google Classroom. We're not there yet, so I don't know. I'm doing some of these way in advance, so we'll get to that. If you have questions, remember you can always ask those questions via Facebook, text, or phone call, an email, and then I'll get back with you on those. But what I did want to do today is we want to go ahead and revisit our end in mind for this particular week, which is I will be able to provide evidence from the story to support the theme. Now, they gave us our theme, which is sticking together and helping others and how important that it is. But what I want you to really think about is that a theme is designed for us to figure out a lesson that they want us to learn. What are they wanting us to learn from that particular theme? And so from this book, it's the importance of sticking together and of helping one another. And we've seen that time and time and time again throughout this story. Our vocabulary this week is protruding or sticking out. And I think in our sentences, there's an example of the stone was protruding from the ground. And then you could extend that and say, the stone was protruding from the ground and the young girl stumbled and fell. So protruding is sticking out. Faltered is stumbled. I faltered on the way down the hill and tumbled head over heels. So stumbled. Invisible is not able to be seen. Prolong is lengthen or draw out. So I think that you're going to find that I'm really trying extremely hard not to lengthen these lessons. Tantalize is to tease. That's, you want it, come get it. No, can't have it. I think about Lucy on Charlie Brown shows. She's always wanting Charlie Brown to kick that football. And she's like, oh, I won't pull it away. I won't pull it away. She's tantalizing him with it. He runs to kick the football and she jerks it out of the way and he falls. She's just a big tease where that's concerned. Evident is clear. Confronting is facing something, and a solution is your answer. So those are the words that we're going to be seeing as we go through the reading. And if we were in the regular classroom, I would have you sticky note those or raise your hand and show me who found them, and we would give blocks for those. But at this point, I just want you to be aware as I'm reading or as you're reading about what those vocabulary words are. So I want us to look at the questions from Monday. We want to go over those just to get a good idea of how you all were doing or listening in this new format. Number 1 says, how has Peter's relationship with Miss Johansson changed? And I want you to go to page 92. Actually, it's on the bottom of 91. I'm sorry. So the way that their relationship has changed is that now it's almost as if Peter is looking at Mama as an equal. On the bottom of the page, it says, Ing, he said, and Anne-Marie realized that it was the first time that she had heard Peter Nelson call her mother by her first name. Before, it had always been Miss Johansson, or in the old days, during the merriment and excitement of his engagement to Lisa, it had been occasionally Mama. So their relationship has changed because previously, by calling someone Mr. or Mrs., you're acknowledging that they have a higher level of respect or a level of importance than you yourself do. When you start calling someone by their first name, then you are acknowledging one another as truly equals. And that's how their relationship has changed. You want to make sure you've got that textual evidence, guys. You're going to need it. Number 2, it says on page 93, why does Anne-Marie think that pride is an odd word? And right in the middle of that book, of that page, I actually circled the word pride. I can do that in my book because it's going to stay with me. If you don't mind, I'm going to have a seat real quick. It's an odd word in this context of our story because Anne-Marie is looking at the Johansons and she's thinking, what do they have to be proud about? They're sitting there in old clothes, tattered blankets, and it just seems odd to her. So they don't look like people who would be proud or have pride at this point. And on 93 it says, pride. Anne-Marie looked at the Rawsons sitting there, wearing the misshapen, ill-fitting clothing, holding ragged blankets folded in their arms, their faces drawn and tired. And so to her, that's just a very odd word to be using for them right at that moment. She remembers them in their other home where they had nice clothes and the dad had a good job, and to her that is a piece of pride. Looking at them now, she's like, I don't know what this is all about. And so that's where that's coming from. Our next question, though, is all about our end in mind. It says, give evidence from today's reading that supports the theme of sticking together and helping people. And that is going to come from page 96. And on page 96, when I stopped, it's talking about how Mama is getting ready to take the Rawsons to meet Uncle Henrik. They are sticking together as a family unit, and she's helping them by leading them to Uncle Henrik's boat to get them to safety. Now, there's great danger in this activity, especially for Mama as well as the Rawsons, because if they are all caught, they could be killed on the spot. They could be rounded up and sent to concentration camps. So there is some real scary issues that could go along with this sticking together and helping people. In the real world, it sounds good, but could you do it? And Mama's really coming face to face with that and making that hard decision of, yes, I can, and yes, I will. Number 4 was our easiest question. How does Anne-Marie feel when Ellen leaves? Well, she's sad. She's, upset because that's her best friend. She's worried about her. Will she make it there safely? What happens to her if she makes it to the boat? And when they get over to Switzerland, what will happen to her friend and the family? So those are some real concerns that she has. So sadness would be the correct adjective to describe her at that point in time. So those are our questions for today. And so we want to go ahead at this point and open our book, if you're not already there, to page 96. Let me give you a minute. All right, here we go. The lid of the casket was closed again. Now the room was empty. There was no sign of the people who had sat there for those hours. Anne-Marie wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, and she opened the dark curtains and the windows. She curled once more in the rocker, trying to relax, and she traced their route in her mind. She knew the old path, too. Not as well as her mother, who had followed it almost every day of her childhood with her dog scampering behind. But Anne-Marie had often walked to town and back that way, and she remembered the turns and the twisted trees whose gnarled roots pushed the earth now and then into knotted clumps, and the thick bushes that often flowered in early summer. She walked with them in her mind, feeling the way through the darkness. It would take them, she thought, half an hour to reach the place where Uncle Henrik was waiting with his boat. Mama would leave them there, pausing a minute, no more, for a final hug. And then she would turn and come home. It would be faster for Mama alone, with no need to wait, as the Rawsons, unfamiliar with the path, slowly felt their way along. Mama would hurry, sure-footed now, back to her children. Well, the clock in the hall struck once. It was 2:30 in the morning. Her mother would be home in an hour, Anne-Marie decided. She rocked gently back and forth in the old chair. Mama would be home by 3:30. She thought of Papa back in Copenhagen alone. He would be awake too. He would be wishing he could have come, but knowing too that he must come and go as always, to the corner store for the newspaper, to his office when morning came. Now he would be afraid for them and watching the clock, waiting for word that the Rawsons were safe, that Mama and the girls were here at the farm, starting a new day with the sun shining through the kitchen window and cream on their oatmeal. So when we think about our end in mind, about sticking together and helping people, that's all well and good. But Anne-Marie is extremely sad about the person that she's left behind, her dad. And even though her dad is not with them, he is moving forward and he's taking up this theme of helping others in a way. He has to keep going on and doing everything as normal so that the Nazis don't get suspicious and wonder where his family is and possibly where the Jewish neighbors might have gone. And so even though it's very difficult for him as well, he is carrying on that sticking together and helping people. And so, but she is thinking about her dad, you know, and how lonely and how scared he must be during this process as well. Let's take our book back up. It was harder for the ones who were waiting, Anne-Marie knew. Less danger, perhaps, but more fear. She yawned and her head nodded. She fell asleep, and it was a sleep as thin as the night clouds, dotted with dreams that came and went like the stars. Light woke her, but it was not really morning, not yet. It was only the first hint of a slightly lightening sky, a pale gleam at the edge of the meadow, a sign that far away somewhere to the east, where Sweden still slept, morning would be coming soon. Dawn would creep across the Swedish farmland and coast. Then it would wash little Denmark with light and move across the North Sea to wake Norway. Anne-Marie blinked in confusion, sitting up, remembering after a moment where she was and why. But it was not right. The pale light at the horizon. It should be dark still. It should still be night. She stood stiffly and stretched her legs and went to the hall to look at the old clock. It was past 4 o'clock. Where was Mama? Perhaps she had come home, not wanted to wake Anne-Marie, and had gone to bed herself. Surely that was it. Mama must have been exhausted. She had been up all night and made the dangerous journey to the boat and returned through the dark woods, wanting only to sleep. So I need to stop here for just a moment because I forgot to have us break our questions down. So let's do that very quickly if you don't mind. Let me give you about a minute and a half to do that. So if you don't mind, let's do that. All right, guys, sorry about that. Let's pick back up at the top of 99. Well, quickly Anne-Marie went up the narrow staircase, and the door to the bedroom where she had slept with Ellen was open. The 2 small beds were neatly made, covered with the old quilts, and empty. Beside it, Uncle Henrik's door was open too, and his bed too was unused and empty. Despite her worry, Anne-Marie smiled slightly when she saw some of Henrik's clothes crumpled in a chair and a pair of shoes caked with the barnyard dirt lying on the floor. "He needs a wife," she said to herself, imitating Mama. Well, the door to the other bedroom, the one with Kirsty and Mama were sharing, was closed. Quietly, not wanting to wake them, Anne-Marie pushed it open. While the kitten's ears moved, standing up straight, its eyes opened wide, and it raised its head and yawned. It pried itself out of Kirsty's arms, stretched, and then jumped lightly to the floor and came to Anne-Marie. It rubbed itself against her leg and purred. Kirsty sighed and turned in her sleep. One arm free, now of the kitten's warmth and comfort, flung itself across the pillow. There was no one else in the wide bed, and Anne-Marie moved quietly or quickly to the window which overlooked the clearing that led to the pass entrance. The light outside was still very dim, and she peered through the dimness, trying to see, looking for the opening in the trees where the path began, looking for Mama hurrying home. And after a second, she saw a shape there, something unfamiliar, something that had not been there the day before. A dark shape, no more than a blurred heap at the beginning of the path. Anne-Marie squinted, forcing her eyes to understand, needing to understand, not wanting to understand. And the shape moved, and she knew it was her mother lying on the earth. Chapter 13. Run as fast as you can. Still moving quietly so as not to wake her sister, Anne-Marie sped down the stairs and through the kitchen door. Her foot caught the loose step, and she faltered for a moment, righting herself, and then dashed across the ground to the place where her mother lay. "Mama!" she called desperately. "Mama!" "Shh!" Mama said, raising her head. "I'm all right." "But Mama," Anne-Marie asked, kneeling beside her, "what's wrong? What happened?" And her mother pulled herself to a sitting position, and she winced in pain. "I'm all right, really. Don't worry. And the Rossens are with Henrik. That's the important thing." She smiled a little, though. Her face was drawn with pain, and she bit her lip, the smile fading. "We got there quite quickly, even though it was still so dark, and it was difficult for the Rossens, not knowing the path. Henrik was there waiting on the boat, and he took them aboard and down below so quickly to the cabin that they were invisible in an instant. He said the others were already there. Peter got them there safely too, so I turned and hurried home. I was so anxious to get back to you girls. I should have been more careful." Talking softly, she brushed some grass and dirt from her hands. "Can you believe it? I was very nearly here. Well, maybe just halfway, when I tripped over a root and went sprawling." Mama sighed. "So clumsy," she said, as if she were scolding herself. "I'm afraid my ankle is broken, Anne-Marie. Thank goodness it is nothing worse. An ankle mends, and I am home, and the Rossens are with Henrik." "You should have seen me, Anne-Marie," she said, shaking her head with a wry look. "Your papa, Mama, crawling inch by inch. I probably look like a drunkard." And she reached for Anne-Marie's arm. "Here, let me lean on you. I think if you support me on this side, I can make my way up to the house. Goodness, what a clumsy fool I am. Here, let me put my arm over your shoulder. You're such a good, strong, brave girl. Now, very slowly, there." And Mama's face was white with pain, and Anne-Marie could see it even through the faint light of the approaching dawn. And she hobbled, and leaning heavily on her daughter, paused again and again toward the house. "When we get inside, I'll have a cup of tea, and then we'll call the doctor. I'll tell him that I fell on the stairs. You'll have to help me wash away the grass and twigs. Here, Anne-Marie, let me rest for a minute." And they had reached the house, and Mama sank down to the steps and sat. She took several deep breaths, and Anne-Marie sat beside her and held her hand. Mama, I was so worried when you didn't come back. And Mama nodded. I knew you would be. I thought of you worrying as I dragged myself along, but here I am, safe with you now. Everything is fine. What time is it? It must be 4:30 or close to it. They will sail soon. And Mama turned her head and gazed across the meadow to the sea and the vast sky above it. There were no stars now, only the gray, pale sky with pinkness at its border. Soon they will be safe too. And Anne-Marie relaxed, and she stroked her mother's hand and looked down at the discolored, swollen ankle. Mama, what is this? She asked suddenly, reaching into the grass at the foot of the steps. Mama looked and she gasped. Oh my God, she said. And Anne-Marie picked it up. She recognized it now, knowing what it was. It was the packet that Peter had given to Mr. Rawson. When Mr. Rawson tripped on the step, remember? It must have fallen from his pocket. We'll have to save it and give it back to Peter. Anne-Marie handed it to her mother. Do you know what it is? And her mother didn't answer. Her face was stricken. And she looked at the path and down at her ankle. It's important, isn't it, Mama? It was for Uncle Henrik. I remember Peter said it was very important. I heard him tell Mr. Rawson. And her mother tried to stand but fell back against the step with a groan. My God, she murmured again. It may all have been for nothing. And Anne-Marie took the packet from her mother's hand and stood. I will take it, she said. I know the way, and it's almost light now. I can run like the wind. Mama spoke quickly, her voice tense. Anne-Marie, go into the house and get the small basket on the table. Quickly, quickly. Put an apple into it and some cheese. Put this packet underneath. Do you understand? Hurry. Anne-Marie did instantly as she was told. The basket, the packet at the bottom. She covered it with a napkin, then some wrapped cheese and an apple. She glanced around the kitchen and saw some bread and added that. The little basket was full. She took it to where her mother was. You must run to the boat. If anyone should stop you. Who would stop me? Anne-Marie. You understand how dangerous this is. If any soldiers see you, if they stop you, you must pretend to be nothing more than a little girl. A silly, empty-headed little girl taking lunch to a fisherman, a foolish uncle who forgot his bread and cheese. Mama, what is it in the bottom? But her mother still didn't answer the question. Go, she said firmly. Go right now and run as fast as you can. And Anne-Marie kissed her mother quickly and grabbed the basket from her mother's lap and turned and ran toward the path. Now I'm going to stop right there, and I want you to look at your questions and jot down page numbers and or paragraphs. Since we can't sticky note, I want you to make yourself some notations as to where you would find your answers when you get ready to write tomorrow. And I'm going to do the same. All right, now, so you should have had a few moments to kind of make yourself some notes. That takes care of our readings for today. So you know that you have to answer all 4 questions in your reading journals. And then tomorrow I will tell you which 2 that I need you to upload to Google Classroom. And like I said earlier, if you have trouble with Google Classroom, make sure that you notify me so that I can help you kind of get through and figure out how to log in and sign in. So be patient with me and we'll work it out together. So that being said, we're done for today. Bye, guys.